Sri Mulyani Indrawati is here. She is one of the managing directors of the World Bank. She oversees operations in Latin America and the Caribbean, East Asia, and the Pacific, and the Middle East and North Africa. Prior to joining the bank in 2010, she was the finance minister of Indonesia. She was praised for efforts to implement economic reforms, tackle corruption, and increase the tax base. Indonesia is today one of the fastest growing economies in the world. I am very pleased to have her here at this table to talk not only about the World Bank, but also about emerging nations and about Indonesia. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Are you going to go back to Indonesia and run for president?
Well, that is a very frequent question.
Yes.
I am now managing director of the bank, which oversees more than 70 countries across a very dynamic region. So I think I enjoy the job now. People may have an expectation, and I feel honored that they think that I can contribute good thing to Indonesia.
Assess for me where Indonesia is today.
Well, Indonesia, in terms of the size of the economy, is within the G20. I think we are on the 16th rank. We are maybe the less exposed in terms of news and media and less understood by many people. Why? Because I think Indonesia is not that articulate in telling about themselves. Although we are a very fascinating country. If you look at a big country with more than 210 or 220 million people, a big Muslim country, democratic. We have a lot of achievement in the past in reducing poverty. And that was the achievement during President Suharto time for 30 years. But then we learned a lot that it is not only enough to have a high growth reducing poverty. People need to have a transparency, participation, accountability, and good governance. And of course, corruption is one of the concerns. Yes. And that's become the lesson learned. The cost is huge for Indonesia. We have to pay 75% of our GDP to bail out the banking system because of the crisis due to both external shock as well as our own internal governance problem. So a lot of lesson learned from Indonesia as a country which is so diverse, but a lot of achievement, a lot of development lesson can be learned from this country.
Many people, when they look at the Arab Spring and they say, where's the model? Some say Turkey, others say Indonesia. Because of the way you handled, you meaning the Indonesians, after the overthrow of Suharto.
Yep. Well, it is certainly not an easy. I mean, you talk Indonesia after 12 years of this transition, very painful transition back in 97, 98. That experience is very valuable. Changing from very centralized to decentralized, from closed society to open, from very authoritarian to democratic. For a country which is like Indonesia, at that time we even think that Indonesia is going to be split into many small countries. So it was not an easy time for us, but we adopted a lot what we call it a front-loaded reform during those very critical time in order to make sure that we are going to change the path. We are really abandoning the previous or past practices. We established a very strong anti-corruption law and even appointing and establishing built anti-corruption commission. We're very proud of it. It was a very strong and ambitious change on the governance, especially related to the state finance. If you call it in Egypt now, or Tunisia, they are asking about how you govern the state finance, from the management, disclosure, up to the securing it and using it for the people benefit. And then a lot of what you call it ambitious reform that cannot be achieved. The expectation of people is very high during this transition, especially after 30 years of very old regime, well entrenched and structural. They want to have a change now, fast. So sometimes setback can be predicted or need to be managed by the transition government. And the most important is actually the interest group that can capture and hijack during that process.